Tell me about your mother. What's your mother's name?
Oh. Elizabeth. She died when I was born.
What was your mother's maiden name? What family did she come from?
Lethbridge, Bessie said. Have the temper of a Lethbridge. The temper of my grandfather.
The search was twofold. Where had she lived? And was there fact in what she said under hypnosis? Did she make up, unconsciously, the names of her mother's family, the Lethbridges? And of the local gentry? Was there in that small pocket of Somerset a James Mackenzie whose name she recalled? A squire called Hugh Somerville? Consistently, the old books and register showed she was right, even to her use of that strange and long obsolete word, talent.
Found the talent you were asking about.
Really?
West Somerset word book. Hayloft over a stable.
Stable, of course. Exactly.
Does that make sense in what you're looking for?
Well, that seemed to have solved part of one problem, and we took the rest to an expert who was later to act as our witness.
It was Blotton or Blauton, and later on became Hornblotton. So we're pretty convinced now that the Blauton she talks about is Hornblotton.
Well, this is interesting because, in fact, the older form of Hornblotton had an O sound in it, so that it looks as if she is hitting on an older form, which has now been corrupted to Hornblotton. So that's very satisfactory.
But I'm convinced that there's something in it. So what we're going to do
Now to find where Gwen, as Rose Duncan, had lived, and to take that independent witness with us. Dr. Basil Cottle is reader in medieval studies in the English department of Bristol University, and he agreed with us that we should make another blindfold test. We took Gwen into the wide general area she'd described under hypnosis in Australia, the area we'd first begun to search. Dr. Cottle watching very carefully Gwen's every move, studying her every word.
That doesn't feel right that way. It's this way. And through the wood that way. I feel that way.
She was pointing to the area around Clanville, a place of few and scattered houses where she claimed there had been 5 shops.
This flat piece here feels right. And this curve here, I'm sure this is where they were. Sure this is where the shops were.
On an old map, on that curve, 5 buildings show. 5 cottage shops, perhaps.
Well, around that bend, if you turn that way, I'm sure you'll come to the stream. Around that bend. Oh, yes, it's water. It's water, I can feel it. And then you go across that. I think if you find a stream there, you'll see where it divides, and you go across the stones. Then you'll come to where I used to live.
It wasn't that easy, not just a matter of walking there.
Oh, yes, always.
In the 2 centuries past, the country has been reshaped. Marshy land has been drained, woods have been cut and cleared, and fences have enclosed open land. But some things remain constant, like a watercourse, a river which, Gwen had told us, divided in a fork. And that's where she took us, to that river.
Yes, I see. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, I reckon down there, if you follow this down to the bottom, I think you'll come across the stepping stone.
Dr. Cottle, demanding but fair, summed up that far.
I think that we have given Gwen very few direct clues to what was being done, but I would emphasize that the test has been a wholly fair one, and I must say that I feel a little more persuaded than I did at the beginning of the proceedings, but my mind is still open.
The next morning we renewed the search. Gwen had taken us to the watercourse, but we weren't yet close to where she'd lived. She was having some trouble finding her way without landmarks in a countryside so much altered.
What's that over there? Well, that's where it was. I lived, if that's the wood, I lived here. Oh, and the wood was there. And it looks like a wood, Peter. Oh, it looks like...
Is there a landmark or something else one would be able to recognise this spot from?
Not far. About 20 minutes to walk from edge of wood. Be this side of stream, you would. Be not far.
In the 18th century, the straight path from Cranville, which Rose Duncan used to follow, led her to the fork in the water and so to her cottage. Dr. Cottle, determined to put her to the test, said that if she knew where the river divided, she should take us along the line of the water. And Gwen, out of time as well as out of place, led us on a 7-mile walk. But then suddenly the scent grew strong, and she took us again to the sound of water buried in the greenery.
Listen to the stream, listen. Oh, look! Look! This is the falls.
This was the key to the puzzle for Gwen. This was where Rose Duncan had crossed the river to go to her cottage. Below a waterfall, the fork in the stream was there, just as she had said it would be. And she was off, moving with the purpose of someone who knows where she is and where to go. She led us unerringly now across fields and through nettle hedges in a beeline for a place we couldn't see. It was afternoon, and Rose Duncan was on familiar ground, home ground.
I think maybe that could be it.
Her mood changed in a sharp moment, almost to a little fear, as though the past was overwhelming her. And of all the houses we'd looked at and crossed off, she led us across country to the very first we had checked. It still seemed not to fit her description in any way at all, except perhaps for a loft. Was this her talent? It looked as though what she called her cottage was a barn alongside a newer house, but she insisted, and Dr. Cottle